Hello my dear grade 8 students. So we are about to discuss the next chapter of our magnets lesson. Now in this chapter we are going to study about the magnetic field of a magnet. The magnetic field of a magnet. This is the part that we are about to discuss on today. Right. So to find out the magnetic power or the magnetic field, actually this magnetic field is the magnetic power, the area which the magnetism or the magnetic power spreads is referred as the magnetic power or the magnetic field. So to find out that area or how that area can be represented or the way that area is going to behave, we are going to do a simple activity. So we are going to find out the area that magnetic power is distributed around a magnet, the area which the magnetic power is going to distribute within a magnet. So we'll be needing these materials to study about this magnetic field. So in the first you need a bar magnet, Number 2, you need iron fillings or iron powder. Then white paper. Instead of a white paper, you can use an A4 sheet. So I'll mention A4 sheet as well. Right. So these are the materials which are important or which we need to carry out this experiment. We'll be needing a bar magnet, iron powder or iron fillings, white paper or else a A4 sheet. Right. So let's see how this activity can be conducted. So first of all you have to do this thing. So I'll show it to you. First thing is we have to take that A4 sheet and we have to spread the iron fillings or the iron powder like this around the A4 sheet. Okay. So this is the first thing to do. What you have to do? You have to spread the iron powder on the A4 sheet like this. Then so you have to take the bar magnet, take that bar magnet you have and place it below that A4 sheet, not from the top but from the below of it. Okay. So you place the bar magnet below the A4 sheet like this, right? You place the magnet like this. Then you have to gently tap on this A4 sheet or else the white color paper so that this iron powder will arrange to a certain pattern on the A4 sheet around the magnetic power or the magnetic field of this magnet. Okay, so this is how to carry out our experiment. Once again I'll explain how to do this thing. You take the A4 sheet and you spread all the iron fillings or the iron powder on it. Then you place the magnet below it and gently tap on the A4 sheet so that all of these iron fillings or iron powder would arrange to a certain pattern, right? So that's how to conduct this activity. It's really simple, right? You can try it at your home also. It's really simple, right? So when you tap on this A4 sheet, you can observe a certain pattern. So that pattern is the one which we are going to observe from this experiment. So that area which the ion fillings are going to spread is the area which referred as the magnetic field, or the area that the magnetic power is going to be held. So we'll write down the method then. So first of all you have to spread iron powder on the white paper like this. Spread iron powder on the paper and place the magnet below it. Remember, you have to place the magnet not from the top, my dear children. You have to place it from the below. It's because that if you place it on the top, then the iron powder would get attracted to the magnet and it will be not easy to remove those iron powder, because it's really hard to remove those iron powder when it is getting attracted to a magnet. It's really difficult. So that's why you are placing this magnet below the A4 sheet or else the white paper, right? Remember that thing, otherwise you have to remove or you have to throw away the magnet, because we can't use it for another experiment if there are iron fillings. So remember to place the magnet below the A4 sheet, right? So spread the iron powder on the paper and place the magnet below it. Then we have to tap gently on the A4 sheet or the paper. Tap gently on the paper and observe the pattern of iron powder. Right. So this is a really simple experiment, right? I'll name the things which are on the paper, right? And these in this figure, I'll name the things in this figure. So this is the paper. This is the paper, and these smaller dots are the iron powder. And this is the bar magnet. Right. So this is the way of doing this experiment. So we'll head out to the lab and see how to conduct the experiment. Right, my dear children. Now in this activity, we'll be finding out the area which the magnetism is going to spread. Right? Like to what kind of a area we can observe the magnetic power or the magnetism in this bar magnet. So let us investigate the area which the magnetism is going to spread in this activity. So here we'll be needing these things, a bar magnet and a white color paper and some iron fillings or some iron powder. So now what we have to do is, I'm going to take this A4 sheet and first of all I'm going to add some iron fillings into this paper, right? I'm going to spread iron powder into this paper like this. So I need to distribute iron powder here and there all over the paper. right. Now, after spreading all these iron fillings on the paper evenly, right. So now I'm going to place this magnet. Now I have a magnet. Now I'm going to place this magnet not from the top. Remember, you can't keep it from the top. If you keep it on the top, then all these iron powder will get attracted towards the magnet and it would be difficult to remove these iron fillings. So not from the top, I'll be inserting this one from the bottom. Means that I'll be inserting this thing from the bottom. So I'll take the paper somewhat up and place the magnet like this, and now I'm going to gently keep it like this way, and now gently I'm going to tap on the white color paper like this. Right. So my dear children, you can observe a wonderful pattern. When you tap on this thing, you can observe a wonderful pattern. See the pattern, right? You can observe the pattern very clearly. And we can see that around this area, the iron powder is getting attracted towards the magnet. So around this area which the magnetic power is going to spread. So it is obvious to us that these iron fillings are getting attracted only in this area. It's because that within this area we can observe the magnetic power or the magnetism of this magnet, of this bar magnet. So this area which the magnetism or the magnetic power spreads is referred as the magnetic field. So it's clear to us that in a bar magnet, the magnetic field is going to spread like this, right? So this is how we can identify the magnetic field in a bar magnet by using this paper and the iron fillings. So you have to remember. So now if I'm going to take this away, so it's easy to identify the pattern. See, now the pattern is really simple to identify, and this is the area which the iron fillings are arranged to a pattern. So this is how to identify the magnetic field of a bar magnet. So let us carry out another experiment in identifying the magnetic field of a bar magnet, but not in a two-dimensional array, but in a three-dimensional array. I think you have observed how does the iron powder is going to behave or is going to circulate around the magnet, and what kind of a pattern that the iron powder is going to create. So I have given you a figure in this slide. You can observe it, right? So in here you can observe the pattern which is getting created after the experiment. When you tap gently on the A4 sheet or the white paper, you can observe this pattern. So this is the pattern which we can observe from this experiment. So it is seen that the iron powder is going to arrange to a certain pattern like this. So this area in which the iron powder is going to arrange, the area which the iron powder is going to arrange is the area that we can observe the magnetic power or the magnetism. We refer that thing as the magnetic field in a magnet. So the magnetism can be observed in these certain areas, right? And this area which the magnetic power spreads is referred as the magnetic field. So we can observe these kind of patterns or this kind of a pattern from the experiment. So we can write down our observation. Iron powder arranged to a pattern as per to the figure. So this is the observation that we can take from this experiment. Iron powder is going to be arranged to a certain pattern like this according to the figure. So what is our conclusion from this activity then? So to write the conclusion, I'll take this slightly somewhat up. So what is our conclusion? So our final conclusion is the area which this pattern could be observed is referred as the magnetic field, or this is the area which the magnetic power or the magnetism can be observed, right? So we'll write down the conclusion then. We'll write down the conclusion. The area which magnetic power spreads can be observed. This area is the magnetic field. This area is the magnetic field. So this is our final conclusion. So by carrying out this activity, we can find out the magnetic field. So this is the magnetic field of a magnet. So magnetic field means it's the area in which the magnetism is going to spread in a magnet, right? So we'll move on to observe this magnetic field in some kind of a different way. Now in the earlier experiment, we placed the magnet below the A4 sheet and we found out the magnetic field in a two-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array means here we can observe the iron fillings on lengthwise and breadthwise. That's the way we could identify the magnetic field in the earlier case. But my dear children, the magnetic field or the magnetic power is not going to spread only in lengthwise and breadthwise. The magnetic field is going to spread in a three-dimensional array. It's spreading in three-dimensional array. It means that the magnetic field can be observed not lengthwise or breadthwise, but it can be observed in height-wise also. Means that the magnetic field is going to spread in all three dimensions of our environment. If you place a magnet in a certain place, we can observe this magnetic field not lengthwise, not breadthwise, but height-wise also you can observe the magnetic field. So to observe that three-dimensional array of the magnetic field, we can carry out this experiment and we can get a final conclusion that the magnetic field is going to arrange in a three-dimensional array. So we'll see how to conduct this activity. By doing this activity, you may get to know that magnetic field is going to arrange in a three-dimensional array, right? So this is our experiment studying the magnetic field around a bar magnet. So here also we'll be needing a bar magnet to observe the magnetic field. So you'll be needing these materials. You'll be needing these materials to do this experiment. So let's see what are the materials then. So definitely you will be needing the main instrument, bar magnet. Then we'll be needing once again iron powder. A test tube, a beaker, then this is a special kind of a liquid which we can find in our laboratory, right? This liquid is referred as glycerine. This is called as glycerine, right? Or sometimes it is named as glycerol also. It's an oily liquid which we can find in our laboratory, glycerine or glycerol. So we need some amount of glycerine. So these are the materials which we need. We'll be needing a bar magnet, iron powder, a test tube, a beaker, and some amount of glycerine, right? Now let's see how to conduct this activity, or what's the method of conducting the activity, right? So the method, now first of all, you'll be needing that glycerine, and we need to put that glycerine into the beaker, right? So we need to put that glycerine into the beaker. So like this, we can insert glycerine into the beaker, right? So we'll need to put glycerine like this onto the beaker. Then after that, you have to mix that iron powder with glycerine very well. Okay, you have to mix that iron powder with glycerine very well. So I'll put dots to show the iron powder, arrangement of iron powder within the glycerine solution. So it's like this. So you have to mix the iron powder with the glycerine. Then you have to take that test tube. You must take that test tube, and that test tube must be, you have to take that test tube and you have to insert the bar magnet into the test tube. You can use a regiform sheet or else a piece of rubber to tightly fix the bar magnet within the test tube. It should be tightly fixed within the test tube, right? So to do that, you can use a piece of rubber or else a regiform sheet so that it would fix within the test tube very well. Okay, so it's like this. I'll draw and show. So this is the test tube. You have to insert the bar magnet like this, and you know that when you are going to insert this into a different location, this would shake here and there. So to avoid that situation, you can fix a regiform sheet or else a piece of rubber like this. It's the way of doing the or fixing the it's a way of fixing the magnet to the test tube. So this is the I'll imagine that this is the north pole N and this is the south pole. Usually I told you in the earlier session that the north and south poles are named by using blue and red colors like this. So north pole is been marked from the red color and the south pole from the blue color. So now you have to do is you have to place this test tube in the beaker which contains iron fillings, iron powder and glycerine. Okay, you have to place this test tube within the beaker, right, to observe the patterns of the iron fillings. So you take this and insert into the beaker. So I'll name the parts. In the figure, I'll name the parts. So if you are being asked to draw a figure, always remember, children, you need to name these instruments within the figure. So this is the beaker. Then glycerine. And so this is the test tube which contains the magnet. So you have to insert it. So I'll erase this part and I'll insert this thing into the beaker then. So I'll draw it once again. So test tube, this is the test tube. Then I'll use a different color to show the magnet. Right. So we need to fix the magnet by using a piece of regiform or else a piece of rubber, or if you want you can place it within the test tube and you can hold it. If you want you can hold it down, right? However, we need to keep the magnet steady within the test tube. Okay, right. So I'll mark the north and south poles like in the earlier case. So this is my north and this is the south, right? So we'll mark the other instruments which we inserted to the beaker. This is the test tube then. And this is the bar magnet. The bar magnet. Okay. So these two pieces are the pieces of regiform or the pieces of rubber, right? I'll be not marking those things because if you want you can remove those things and you can hold it by using your hand. Okay. So I'm not going to mark those two pieces. Right. So these are the main instruments that we need to carry out this experiment. Okay. So after doing this thing, after setting up these apparatus, the iron powder so these small dots are iron powder. So I'll mark that one also in the diagram. Iron powder. So after doing this setup or after arranging this setup, we can observe that this iron powder is going to arrange in a certain pattern around the magnet. Around the magnet, the iron powder is going to arrange into a certain pattern. Like in the earlier activity, which we used that white color paper to observe the magnetic field. So in the same way, this iron powder is going to arrange to a certain pattern around the bar magnet within the test tube, right? So it is clear to us this magnetic field or the magnetic power is going to arrange around the bar magnet in a three-dimensional array. Means that around the magnet in all directions we can observe the iron powder or iron fillings in it. Okay, so we can observe not in a certain direction, not to a certain direction, but in all directions. Means that in three-dimensional array we can observe the iron powder in this case, in this situation. Now in the earlier case we had only two dimensions, length of the A4 sheet and the breadth of the A4 sheet. That's it, right? We haven't got a chance to observe whether the magnetism or the magnetic field is going to arrange in height wise. But in this situation you can observe that thing as well. So here we can observe clearly the three-dimensional array of the magnetic field. So we'll conduct this activity, right, in the laboratory, and we'll see how this is going to arrange. But before that I'll write down the two steps or the steps of doing this experiment. So how to do the experiment, my dear children? So it's really simple. We have to add glycerine to the beaker and mix iron powder in it very well. So first step is add glycerine to the beaker and mix iron powder in it. Right. So this is the first step. Then the next step, you have to fix the bar magnet or insert the bar magnet to the test tube and insert that setup to the beaker as per to the diagram. Fix the magnet, in the test tube and insert it to the beaker. Insert it to the beaker. So this is the way of doing our experiment. So it's really simple experiment. You take the glycerin and you put that glycerin into the beaker. Then after that you insert the test tube by inserting the magnet into the test tube like in the figure, right? Okay, so now we'll go to the lab and see how to conduct the experiment. Right, my dear children, now I'm going to do another activity in finding out the magnetic field. So in earlier activity we found out the magnetic field just in a two-dimensional array. Means that I have arranged iron fillings on a certain white color paper and I have put this bar magnet below it. Then I have tapped on the white color paper or the A4 sheet and the iron powder on the A4 sheet arranged to a certain pattern but in a two-dimensional array. Means that towards the length direction or the in a length way and to the breadth of the A4 sheet and towards the length of the A4 sheet, iron powder arranged just in a two-dimensional way. So now I'm going to show that the magnetic field of a magnet is not just going to arrange in a two-dimensional array, but it's going to arrange in three dimensions. Means that it is going to spread not lengthwise, not just the breadthwise, it also moves towards the height-wise as well. So let us engage in this activity to identify the three-dimensional array of the magnetic field. So I have a beaker of glycerine here, right? I have a beaker of glycerine here. So glycerine is a high viscous liquid, right? And it's like an oil. So now and I have a test tube. So I'm going to insert the magnet to the test tube like this, so that when I'm going to insert the magnet into my glycerine container, the iron powder inside the glycerine would not attract to this magnet. I'm placing it like this, and now I am going to insert the iron powder into this glycerine container. So let's insert this iron powder into the glycerine container like this. Right. Now I have a glass rod with me, so I can use this glass rod to shake this container so that the iron powder will spread along the liquid very well. So I'm going to spread it, and while I'm spreading it around the container, I'm going to insert the magnet. Right. So can you see there is a pattern? There is a pattern in around the magnet. We can observe a clear pattern around the magnet. The iron powder has arranged in all over the magnet in a circular way, not just in a length or breadthwise, but we can say that the magnetic power or the magnetism spreads in all three dimensions of a magnet. So the magnetic power spreads in all three dimensions of the magnet. So it is obvious to us that magnetic field or the magnetic power is not just a two-dimensional force or two-dimensional magnetic force, or the magnetism is not just two-dimensional, but it is spreading all around the magnet in a three-dimensional array. Right. So this is about the magnetic field. Then we'll discuss further things related to the lesson in the next time periods. Okay. Right, my dear children. So we conduct the activity in our laboratory. So we observed how this is going to occur. So in the lab we observed this kind of a figure, this kind of a image. I think that you have observed it clearly. So this is the final image or the final figure that we can see if you have observed very clearly. This is the pattern of arranging the iron powder around that bar magnet in this activity. So you can see that it's not going to spread like length or breadthwise, but all around the magnet it's going to arrange in a certain pattern like this. So this is how the iron powder is going to arrange around the magnet, right? So in our observation, then we can write iron powder arranged all around the magnet according to the figure. So according to the figure, iron powder has been arranged, or iron powder arranged according to the figure all around the magnet. That was our final observation. When we are going to observe it, or when you are going to see it, this is the final figure, the final image that we can observe, right? So our conclusion then finally is, it's really simple. Then we know that the magnetic field is going to arrange not to a certain direction like length or breadth wise, it's going to arrange in all three dimensions around the magnet. So magnetic field is going to arrange not in a length or breadth wise or two-dimensional array, but it's going to arrange in the three-dimensional array in our environment. So magnetic field is a three-dimensional array quantity that we can observe around a magnet. So we can write finally in our conclusion, magnetic power or else the magnetic field, I'll include that thing within the brackets, spreads around the magnet in all directions. In all directions, within brackets I'll include around the three dimensions. Around the three dimensions. The three dimensions are length, breadth and height. Right. The three dimensions are the length. So I'll take it as height. This is the height, breadth, and to this direction, once again, also you can observe the magnetic field. Topwise, then into the plane, then out of the plane. So in all of these directions, we can observe the magnetic field, right? So magnetic field is a quantity that arranged in a three-dimensional array. So this is the final conclusion that we can take from the experiment, right? So here you are given with the things which we identified in the magnet. So the things which related with the magnetic power, we referred that thing as the magnetic field. So here you are given, it can be observed that iron filings are arranged in a pattern within a certain area around the magnet. So in all of these two experiments, we could observe that magnet around the magnet, the iron powder is going to arrange to a certain pattern, but on a certain area only. In a certain area only. So area that the magnetic power is spread around the magnet. So this area which the magnetic power is going to spread in the experiment, the area which that iron powder is going to spread is called the magnetic field of that magnet. So it is called as the magnetic field of that magnet. So the area which the magnetic power is going to spread is referred as the magnetic field of a certain magnet. So imaginary lines used to denote the magnetic power around the magnet and are known as the magnetic field lines. So we use imaginary lines when we are drawing a certain magnet, right? When we are drawing a certain magnet, if you have been asked to show the magnetic field, so we use lines to denote the magnetic field. Actually these lines cannot be observed around a magnet. When you take a magnet like this, we'll imagine that this is a magnet. So when you take a magnet, you can't observe those lines around the magnet. We can't observe. That's why those things are referred as imaginary lines. Imaginary means though the scientists are going to assume, right? So actually those lines are cannot be observed from our naked eye. Those things are imaginary. Like to say the location of a certain person, or else a location of a certain place, we use the longitudes and latitudes in our earth. So those lines are also imaginary. We can't observe those lines in our earth. If you go to a certain place, there are no lines within that place, right? There are no lines, no. But still we are going to define a certain location by using longitudes and latitudes in our earth. In the same way, right? So those lines are imaginary for the convenience of the people, or for the convenience of the scientist, or whatever the person. The longitudes and latitudes are being used to denote a certain location. So those lines are imaginary. We assume that these type of lines are going to occur around our earth. So in the same way, to represent the magnetic field, we use imaginary lines which referred as magnetic field lines. So these lines are imaginary lines, and these lines are referred as magnetic field lines. These lines are referred as magnetic field lines, right? So magnetic field lines are the ones which we can observe around the magnetic field, right? So in a magnet. So the imaginary lines used to denote the magnetic power around a magnet are known as magnetic field lines. So these lines are referred as magnetic field lines then. These are imaginary, my dear children. Okay. So if you take a magnet like this, these imaginary lines or the magnetic field is going to spread. It's going to spread like this. Around the magnet, it's going to spread in a certain direction like this. Like this. So always remember, this magnetic field lines is going to arrange only to a certain direction, only to a one certain direction. These field lines are arranging only to a one certain direction. Means that they are going to start from a certain direction or from a certain pole of a magnet, and they are going to travel to the other pole of the magnet. So always remember, this magnetic field is going to arrange from north pole to the south pole of a magnet. From north pole to south pole of a magnet, we can observe the magnetic field lines. It's always running from north pole to the south pole. It's always been arranged from north pole to the south pole, right? Means that north pole is going to emit the magnetic field lines, and south pole is going to collect all of those magnetic field lines. That's how the magnetic power or the magnetic field is going to spread around a magnet, right? Right, okay. So this is the magnetic power or the magnetic field and the magnetic field lines, right? So my dear children, now we are going to study about more details which related to the magnetic field of a magnet, right? Somewhat more details related to the magnetic field. So in here we'll be needing several magnets. We needing magnets. And we'll be needing two. Actually, two is enough, but it's more probable to use 4 of them, right? So these things are rigiform boards. These things are rigiform boards, right? If you can't find 4, then it's okay to use at least 2. Okay, so I'll mention here 2, but it's good to find out 4 rigiform boards so that we can do this experiment quite easily and quickly. Okay, so I'll mention rigiform boards. Remember, it should be in A4 size. A4 size. Then once again we'll be needing iron powder, as we are observing the magnetic field. Iron powder. And these are white papers, but in a size of A4, right? So you can use A4 sheets. If you don't have A4 sheets, you can use white color papers as well and you need to cut those things into the size of a A4. And finally you need glue, right? Glue. So these are the materials you will be needing: magnets, rigiform boards of A4 size, iron powder, some A4 sheets, and glue, right? Now let's see how to conduct this activity, right, to observe this magnetic field. So this is the method. This is the method, right? So in the first step, right, you have to take this rigiform boards and you need to insert these magnets. Actually here I have 4 magnets. I have 4 magnets in here. Okay, 2 is also enough, right? 2 is also enough, but if you want to do the activity quite easily and more faster, you can use 4 magnets. 2 is also enough, right? So if you are using 2 magnets, then we have to carry out the experiment in 2 different occasions, or in 2 different occasions, or in 2 different instances, right? So let's imagine that I'll be having only 2 magnets. So I'll name this thing as figure 1. Using a different color, I'll name this thing as figure 1. So this is the figure 1. Let's imagine that I have only 2 magnets. So this is the figure 1, this one, figure 1. And this is the figure 2. So what you have to do here is, first of all you need to place these 2 magnets within the rigiform sheet, like according to the figure. Okay, so when you are placing these 2 magnets, you can dig up a hole, right? You can dig up a hole to the size of the magnet and you can insert the magnet in it. Okay, you can dig up a hole to the size of the magnet within the rigiform board and you can place that magnet within it. Okay, then then you have to insert the other magnet as well, but remember, when inserting the other magnet, make sure the two north poles are facing each other according to the diagram. So this is also north, you can see this is also north, and this is also north in the second magnet. In the first magnet also there is north, and the second magnet there is also north facing each other. Okay, the two nodes are facing each other in the first diagram. Now in the second diagram, in the second instance, let me explain the first instance then how to do this activity. Okay, so you insert the magnet like this to face the north and north directions, north and north poles of the magnet. Then after that, you have to take that iron powder and place it around a white color paper, I mean in an A4 sheet. Then you have to place it on the on this board, on this rigiform board. Then you have to gently tap on it so that the iron powder would arrange to a certain pattern, like in the earlier case which we studied, the magnetic field. Okay, so after that you have to keep this apparatus in a certain place. Then you have to take another different A4 sheet and you need to paste glue on the A4 sheet and let it dry. Okay, when pasting glue, remember we need to apply a simple thin layer of glue within the A4 sheet. So here we are going to apply glue and we are going to place it over the shape of that iron powder. Okay, so it's really important to apply a really thin layer of glue. Okay, now after that, now we have the apparatus like this. I'll draw and show the arrangement then. So this is the A4 sheet, and below the A4 sheet you can observe the two magnets like this. Then there is iron powder around the A4 sheet like this, iron powder. Now this is our setup. Now you have to take that other A4 sheet which the glue has been pasted and we need to press it against this setup so that the arrangement of iron fillings or the iron powder would pasted on your other A4 sheet which the glue has been applied. So by that way you can look at that A4 sheet which the A4 sheet which the pattern of the iron powder or the iron fillings, right? So that's how to conduct this experiment. So in the first case, what you have to do, you have to fix the two magnets on the rigiform board like this. You can dig up a hole within the rigiform board and you can place the two magnets in it like this. Okay, so after that you place the white color paper over it and you spread some iron powder and you tap gently on it to arrange to a certain pattern. Then you take another A4 sheet that has a thin layer of glue. Then you have to place it over this setup and you need to imprint that iron powder pattern on that other A4 sheet which the glue has been applied. So this is the way of doing the experiment. So we keep that A4 sheet in a different place. Then once again you have to arrange the two magnets according to the second figure so that the south pole is facing north pole. In the second figure you can observe that the south pole is facing north pole like this. And my dear children, what you have to do, once again you have to repeat the following scenarios. What will you do? we place the A4 sheet on the regiform board, then we put some iron fillings into it, then we tap gently, then after that pasting some glue on a different A4 sheet, then we need to press it over the setup to imprint that pattern of iron powder. So that's the way of doing the experiment. So here also you can observe the magnetic field around magnets. So you know that in a magnet, like poles are going to repel and unlike poles are going to attract. So in this situation, we can observe how the magnetic field lines or the magnetic field is going to arrange when they are attracting and when they are repelling. Right. So we'll write down the way of doing the experiment then. We'll write down the way of doing the experiment then. Right. So first, what you have to do? Place the magnets on the regiform board according to the figure 1. According to figure 1. So I'll mention north pole facing north pole. Okay. North pole to face north pole. Right. Then so I'll take the entire slide upward so that I can write the steps. Next step. In the next step, what you have to do? You have to take a A4 sheet and place it over the setup and add some iron powder or iron fillings. Place an A4 sheet over the setup and add some iron powder The next step, tap gently on the A4 sheet to arrange iron powder around the magnetic field. then what you have to do, then in the next step, now we need to apply glue on a different A4 sheet. Apply glue. I'll mention thin layer of glue. Apply a thin layer of glue on another A4 sheet and press it. We need to press it and press it on the above setup to imprint the pattern of iron powder. So place the magnets on the rigiform board according to the figure 1. You saw the figure 1, like north pole to face north pole. Then place an A4 sheet over the setup and add some iron powder. Tap gently on the A4 sheet to arrange iron powder around the magnetic field. Then apply a thin layer of glue on another A4 sheet and press it on the above setup to imprint the pattern of iron powder. Then once again you have to repeat the same step in the step 2 as well. After taking this imprint, you can remove it or you can keep it in a different place, right? Then you have to repeat the same step once again. We have to repeat the same steps to observe the magnetic field, to observe the iron powder pattern in the second figure as well. So I'll mention that thing in here. So in the second step or in the second figure also, we have to follow up the same procedure. So repeat the same steps in second instance repeat the same steps in second instance and get the two imprints So this is our experiment. So we'll head on to the laboratory and see how this is going to be conducted. Right, my dear children. Now, in this activity, we'll be finding out how does the magnetic field lines are getting arranged around two magnets when like poles are placed and when unlike poles are placed each other. So in this situation, I'll be needing now in the activity, I think within the materials, we used a regiform sheet, but instead of a regiform sheet, I have used a sponge layer so that I can continue with the experiment quite easily. So I have used the regiform layer instead of I have used a sponge layer instead of a regiform. And instead of cardboard sheets, I have taken some A4 sheets like this. And once again, I have another 2 A4 sheets which applied with thin layer of glue, right? So this is to paste, or this is to copy down the pattern which is getting observed during the experiment, right? So I have already applied the glue. It's because that I need to keep it for some time so that the glue will get somewhat dried up. No, so I have already applied it on it, right? So now I'm going to keep it in this kind of a place, and now I'm going to do the activity. So our activity is really simple. How to conduct this activity then? So I have 2 magnets like this. First of all, I am going to place the 2 magnets so that the unlike poles are facing each other. So that the unlike poles are facing each other. So here the north pole is facing towards the south pole. Now I'm going to keep one A4 sheet like this at the top, and now I'm going to put some iron powder into it. So it's easy to do the experiment like this. I'm going to keep it away and I'm going to pour this iron powder into the A4 sheet like this. Then I'm going to spread it here and there. So I'm going to spread it here and there by using this glass stick. All right. So I have spread it here and there by using this glass stick. And now what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to place it over the 2 magnets in here, and gently I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to place it over the setup which we arranged by using the magnets. Right. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to tap on the A4 sheet like this. So remember, my dear children, here we put unlike poles together. Here we put unlike poles together. All right. Now we could get a certain pattern here. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take one of the A4 sheets which I have applied with glue, and I'm going to paste it over this thing so that I get a good imprint. Okay, so I'll place it like this. And I'm going to take the imprint of the iron powder by pressing it downward. Right. Now gently I am going to remove . Right. So it's difficult to get off the paper as it got stuck with the glue, right? So I'll remove this excess paper. Right, now this is my imprint. See, now this is my imprint. You can see a good pattern. Here you can see that the magnetic field lines of the two magnets, see, the magnetic field lines of the two magnets are facing each other. It's clear to us that the magnetic field lines are facing each other. You can clearly observe it. Observe the pattern, how the magnetic field lines are facing each other. So these are like poles. So we can name, I'll use a marker pen. I'll use a marker pen and name the north and the south pole of these two magnets. Or else you can use just a pen if you want, but it's quite good to use a marker pen. So I'll use a marker pen and use the north and south poles like this. So north and south poles, right? So here, now this is the pattern which we can observe. This is the pattern which we can observe when the unlike poles are kept near each other. So this pattern is quite obvious. You can observe that the magnetic field lines are getting attracted each other. So the magnetic field lines are attracted each other from north to south pole. And now let's see how does the magnetic field lines are getting arranged if I am going to place the north and south poles, not the north and south poles, but the like poles, north or south together. So I'll keep south and south together like this. And now I'm going to once again apply iron powder and again tap on it, then get the imprint onto another A4 sheet. So I can use the previous ones. So keep it in here. Use another paper. I told you that earlier, to conduct the activity quite easily, we can use 4 A4 sheets or else 2 cardboard sheets and 2 A4 sheets. But here I have used 4 A4 sheets. Right, once again I am applying iron powder. And now I am spreading iron powder here and there by using that glass sheet. So I have this glass stripe. I'm going to spread all the iron powder here and there by using this glass strip. Right. Now my dear children, I'm going to keep this thing over the setup that we arranged by using the two magnets and that sponge layer. Right. So let's gently keep this A4 sheet over the system like this. Now I'm going to tap so that the magnetic field lines would arrange. Right. Now I am going to take my second A4 sheet which I have applied with glue, and I am going to place it like this and press so that the imprint is getting pasted on this A4 sheet. Right. Now I am going to take it away. So I'll use it once again. Right, my dear children, now in this you can observe the magnetic field lines are facing away from each other, not like in the previous case where we did get an imprint. So I'll remove it and I'll show you the other one. So see this one and this one, there is a clear difference. There is a clear difference between the arrangement of magnetic field lines. So here I have written it by using the marker pen. I have marked the poles. So here this one, you know, this is the south and south poles, this one. So here the magnetic field lines are facing away from each other, but in here the magnetic field lines are attracting each other. So it is obvious to us that magnetic field lines are getting spread around two magnets into a pattern like this. So this pattern is going to change when I am going to interchange the two poles of the magnet. Right, my dear children, so we conducted the experiment and we could observe this kind of imprints. This kind of imprints can be observed, right? So these are the two imprints which we observed. So I have mentioned those figures in this side as well. So here, pattern of a magnetic field between unlike poles. You can observe between unlike poles this kind of a pattern, and we observed this kind of a pattern between like poles and unlike poles. So this is the pattern that we can observe, right? So this is our observation. Then we could observe these kind of imprints around the magnets, right? So in the conclusion we can write different patterns could be observed. Different patterns could be observed. Different patterns could be observed in the magnetic field. So we can observe different patterns around the magnetic field according to our experiment, right? So this is about the magnetic field, and the magnetic field lines are going to behave when we are placing some iron powder on a certain magnet. So my dear children, now that's the way of doing our experiment. Then we could observe different types of patterns or different types of magnetic field lines around a magnet when they are arranged like this, right? When two magnets are facing like poles to each other, and when two magnets are facing unlike poles to each other, we could observe different kinds of patterns in the magnetic field. So in the next chapter, we'll be discussing further things related with the magnets lesson then.